Welcome to Thriving with Nature, a podcast that gives you the tools you need to live a modern lifestyle that helps regenerate our planet. And now your host, Hayley Weatherburn.
Episode 50, the best Christmas present ever. Merry Christmas from the jungles of Bali. If you celebrate that particular holiday, Merry Christmas, otherwise Happy Holidays. Hopefully you're somewhere in the world having a delightful day. I know some people aren't able to spend time with their family, myself included, actually. This is the longest I've been without seeing my family in Australia, which is really quite hard, as some of you probably can relate. My parents, they're in Australia. I miss them a lot, and my youngest brother, and living in Bali here, obviously I can't get to see them. So yeah, I just hope you're with loved ones. Me, I'm having an orphan Christmas with some friends in Lombongan. So I am pre-recording this from the jungles of Bali, as I will be heading down to the Lombongan and to my friends for Christmas Eve soon. But today, when you hear this, it's Christmas Day, so Merry Christmas. And I want to share with you a Christmas present that I have given myself that is the biggest thing I've ever done for myself. And as you all know, it's all been leading up to this point. I am now the guardian of some land here in Bali for the next 25 years. I am so grateful. I am so excited. I am so, daunted. Daunted, is that a word? It's daunting by the ways in which it can go. I want to make sure I do well with nature. I want to make Mother Nature proud. The land that I've got is already in a reasonably good condition. It's actually in a great condition. And so what I want to do to help educate and learn and all these different methods, I want to make sure that I only improve it. So yeah, I went through the process. So one of the things I had to do was to meet the town adat. And the town adat is like the local government here, but it's much more tribal. You actually go to their house and you sit with them. And it was good because what they're there to do is to make sure that there's peace and happiness through the village and make sure people are happy. They're the protectors, and you become into the village. You become a part of the village. But before you can do that, they have to meet you and check, do you align with the values of our community? And I'm so grateful because he's very passionate about the community being focused on eco. So good for the nature and good for the humans. Very, very balanced. Very sort of permaculture principles in the sense that it's, good for nature, good for the social community, and good for fair trade, fair people, and a fair share. Fair trade. It's very early. I'm sure I got those three ethics wrong. But it's basically people, the planet, and yourself, making sure you take care of yourself, you get a fair share, and then you take care of the people and you take care of the environment. And so he said, this is what's important for me, the protection. He wanted to know what my intentions were here and if they align with that. So yeah, we sat down in one of those traditional Balinese, if you think of Eat, Pray, Love in the movie, we were sitting down where it's in the sort of the center of their home. It's almost like what you would call a lounge room, but you're just sitting on the tiles there under in sort of a ballet. I'm sure there's a much more traditional word for it. Around they have their different little rooms for the different homes. And even there was this wooden with tall pillars, and sort of the actual contained area is up high because that's where they keep all their rice. It's sort of like their rice bank, their storage. And underneath it had all these tools and stuff for ceremony, stuff for cooking. But it was just very traditional, and I felt very much like I was in the jungle. But the house was very sort of in well condition. It was looked after. It was the whole compound, you would call it. And so I went there and sat down, and yeah, just we got to know each other. It was just sort of an introduction to get to know each other, and then what's the expectations if I join the village, and how can I contribute to the village. And of course, once I become welcomed into the village, there is a payment. It's a contribution, like council fees and things. Then their responsibility is also to protect myself, because you become part of the family, part of the village. Yeah, so it went for a couple of hours, and it was just, yeah, it was really good. And yeah, it went well, and I feel welcomed, and I feel that I can contribute to the vision of the village, which makes me happy, because that's what I want to be. I want to come in and help the village as a whole, not just come in and do my own thing. We've just shifted through the 21st of December, which is the shift into a new era, and it talked, some of the readings I've read, it's about going into community. Together we're better, rather than the individual, and that's really important to me. And I feel like in a society we've been brought up to look after yourself. We've been in a community, we've been in, definitely in the Western society, where families all live quite separately. Your grandparents live somewhere else. You just live in your immediate family. Sometimes you haven't even seen your relatives. You only see them a few times a year. Whereas here, the entire family lives in the one compound, and then all the village lives together, and they all work together. So they don't necessarily think of them as individuals themselves sometimes. And it's, as a Westerner who comes here, it's very unusual. As a very small example, I'll put my thongs down. I remember in some of the other houses I've stayed in, I'll put my thongs down, and I'll be like, where are my thongs? And the cleaner's off using them somewhere, because they just grab it, whoever's shoes is at the front, and just use it. There's not mine, yours, it's ours. And that takes a little while to get used to, but it's very exciting. So it's very exciting to become part of a community and start to learn their ways and learn their history. Some of the stories they were sharing were, how as kids they used to run around in the rice fields, catch eels, put the eels in their hat. They'd have these, sort of, when you think of rice fields, you think of these sort of really pointy hats, and on top of their head they'd put the eel that they caught, and then the hat on top, and then come home with all the things they caught, like frogs and dragonflies, and then they'd cook it up. And they talked about how they used to catch and cook the dragonflies, and they said there used to be many different types of dragonflies, and now there's hardly any. And so we talked about how he wants to help bring back that nature, bring back the farming. So it's really, really aligned. I said I want to help people be excited about being a farmer, and really help it become more regenerative, more organic. Yeah, so it's exciting to be part of this community and to be allowed to come into this community. Then, of course, the next thing, I went down to sign for the land, which is super, super amazing. Went down after sitting down with my friend Simon, and he helped translate it for me. We went through the whole contract. He read it out, and to me it sounds good. And then when we went to the notary, the landowner and I went down, and we sat down, and they read line by line to him, and then to me they read the translation, and we just basically had to agree to each point as it was read out. And then once then we had to sign, and we even had to do a thumbprint. So you don't see that in the Western world, where a contract is used with a thumbprint. So we both signed the contract, and then I transferred the deposit, and There's one last piece of thing that has to happen, and then I will receive an invoice to pay, and then I'll receive the contract. So yeah, as far as everything, like I've done everything I have in my part for the land contract. So I'm just waiting now for this final piece for me to have that contract in my hand, which is very super exciting. So that is the best Christmas present ever, this land. And, you know, it makes me contemplate what, you know, this year, at the beginning of this year, when I started this podcast has now been going every week this whole year. That's an achievement for me. I'm very proud of that. I didn't know that I would be buying land or leasing land at the end of this 12 months. But thriving with nature has always been in the back of my mind. And so 2020 has worked fast for me. I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for what I've achieved this year. You know, the podcast and all of you, those of you who are listening and are regular listeners, thank you so much. I really am so grateful. You've helped be alongside me in the very foundations of this venture, this journey, this adventure. You know, thriving with nature, I really passionately believe. When the New Year's Eve ball hit for 2020, I heard a voice that came straight to me from nowhere else. I don't know what happened. It was just there. And it said, "This is why you're here. The next 10 years are why you're here," was the message. And it's like, okay. And I know what I'm passionate about and what my mission is to help us get back to aligning and thriving with nature. And so, you know, starting this podcast was part of that, and fumbling away and learning, you know, what works, what doesn't, and getting clearer. And I'm definitely much more clearer. Now we go into a year where I have land to play in. And so definitely watch out on YouTube, Thriving with Nature, because I'm going to be sharing this whole journey of, you know, connecting with the community as well as building on the land. You know, I'll be building my home and then building the gardens, or actually I'll probably build the gardens before I build the home, some of the gardens, at least some of my veggie gardens. So I am very grateful for this year, and what no better than the best Christmas present is to become a guardian of some land for some time to do the best I can. So yeah, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, and I hope you're happy and healthy. And thank you so much for joining me this year. This next podcast will be on the 1st of the year, which is amazing. And yeah, thank you for joining me in 2020. And I'm excited to take the adventure further in 2021, and I hope you join me too. Have a beautiful holiday, happy holidays, and stay safe, and let's together thrive with nature.
Hey, if you enjoyed listening to my podcast, remember to subscribe to hear more. You also have to come check out the Living Supplement Garden, a garden that reads your individual's body's condition and grows the substances it requires to move towards optimal health and potentially healing your ailments. When we align with nature, we thrive with nature. I'd love to have you join myself and others as we discover the magic of nature together and strive to heal both ourselves and our planet. Go to thrivingwithnature.com.